So cool, we're now recording. So yeah, just to recap, I've got Ben Clark, the founder of Adapt to Perform, joining me today on the Adaptify podcast that we're going to record live. Thanks for joining us. Ben's a bit of a legend. He's a quadriplegic, personal trainer, physical trainer. You're a physio, right? Trained physio?
No,
sorry,
not trained.
a trained, forgive me, a trained personal trainer, right?
Yeah, trained personal trainer.
That's quite an achievement, and we'll get into that shortly. But first of all, I want to welcome everyone who's tuned in, and of course, Ben, thanks for taking the time. Ben's joining us from the UK, and can be a bit of a juggling act trying to get our time zones all lined up. But we manage at this time, and Ben's been someone I've wanted to have on the show and chat with for some time. So thanks for joining us, Ben.
Oh, absolute pleasure to come on. I love the show already. I've tuned in for quite a few of them. So yeah, it's good to be on it finally.
Hey, so Ben, tell us first and foremost a little bit about yourself and your, what sort of things are you into, or were you into before you had your accident?
Yeah, so my sort of life has nearly always been revolved around swimming. And so ever since I was a little kid, I really wanted to be a swimmer. And there was a certain moment in my young life, as many young people have, which was watching the Olympics and specifically watching Ian Thorpe swim and seeing how well he did it and like with so much little effort, and he's such a graceful swimmer. And I was like, I want to do that. And that was in 2000 at the Sydney Olympics when I was about 9 years old. So at that point, I was just like, okay, I want to make a proper go for it. Like, I want to make this my thing. It wasn't just I like swimming. It was like, I want to do this properly. I want to make that my thing. So yeah, when kids are growing up and they say they want to be an astronaut or whatever, I was like, I want to be an Olympic swimmer and do what he's doing. So and luckily I happen to be quite tall and I got fairly big feet, so I was naturally gifted for the sport. And also I was just quite good at just whatever I seemed to apply myself in terms of sport. So from a young age, just getting involved, I was naturally quite talented at it. I managed to do quite well at my local club, and I got an offer from a boarding school in the UK that specialises in swimming, and they've had many great UK Olympians over the years. And yeah, I got the chance to go there and really see if I can make something of it. Within my first year, I got my first national time, went to the nationals. I went in ranked 56th with my time, and I ended up coming 6th in the same competition with a 4-second personal best. And then my coach was like, "Oh, you're pretty good. let's like push this forwards and keep going." And it just snowballed over the years, really. I managed to get a national gold medal, and I was really doing well with my life, really progressing forwards, getting on national teams as a junior, and then getting the opportunity as well to head out to Australia to train with some of the best people in the world and one of the best coaches as well. And that was on the Gold Coast in Australia. So I was out there living an amazing life, being 18, 19 years old, living in Australia on the opposite side of the world, all the sun, and just eat, swim, sleep, repeat all day long. And it was the life I wanted to live, and it was amazing. And then I was doing that for 10 months, and then I came home, and the idea of coming home was I was going to go to my niece's christening and then compete at the nationals. And this was 2 years before the Olympics in 2012. So I really wanted to make my statement on the national scene, try and get a senior gold medal or a senior medal in one of the races to get on the program so I could be put forward for 2012. And that was my goal and my ambition. Came home, had my niece's christening. It was all going well. Again, just living my best life and just sort of doing all my swimming, but back in this country with my old coaches. And then I was down on the beach one day with a friend, just on a relaxing off day. Ran into the sea, thought I was on Baywatch, doing the whole slope. No, not even slow motion. and then dove into the water, and it was shallower than I expected. The sand at the bottom was sort of like this. I was in a deep part, dove in, thought it was the same depth as I was, but it happened to be just really shallow. and the wave just came at the wrong time where the water was even shallower, and I hit my head, and I broke my neck at C7 in the end. So at that time I was lying down in the water, and not really knowing what had happened, couldn't move my body at all, just lying down, and I just felt at the time I just needed to be calm. When I was in Australia, I did a little bit of lifeguarding to pay my way, and I knew that what the training was to deal with a spinal cord injury, but I didn't really know what a spinal cord injury was. Didn't really know the ramifications of it. I just know I had to keep still and just pray that the lifeguards would come and get me. So I was laid down there and then sort of blackening in that consciousness, trying to hold my breath, and just trying to stay alive and just calm in that moment. The next thing I knew, I was on the beach, just a small flash, and I saw people standing over me. Then another flash, and I was in the back of an ambulance, with the ambulance guy saying he's going to have to cut my shorts off, and that I've paralyzed myself. And then the next flash, I was in hospital. My mum's there crying, and then next flash was like a couple of days later, and it's all a bit of a blur still from back then. But I was dipping in and out of consciousness, took a lot of water on. Then I was in hospital, and my life had changed in an instant, basically. Yeah.
Man, that's a heavy story. I've heard the same scenario a few times where, just diving into the waves, and it's interesting. What I learned while I was living in Australia was that there's these, I guess they call them gutters, where, and you'd learn this in lifesaving, where there's these currents that form these deeper parts often at the start of the surf line, and then the sand comes up in a bar, if you like. And I guess that's what surfers like to surf on. They're not always that obvious, and obviously, and it's such a shock to the it's actually such a hazard, but it's like it's not an obvious hazard, like you wouldn't jump off a roof, or you wouldn't, you'd be careful around a balcony. It's water. You think, I'm just going to dive in, it's soft.
Something that everybody does. Everybody runs into the sea and dives into the waves, and it just so happened that I was a bit too good at diving, it was a bit too shallow, and you can't tell. Like, there's nothing I could have done really to change the situation apart from not doing it, but I wasn't to know that was the situation that was happening.
So tell us, what was your preconceived notion of a spinal cord injury, or someone that it breaks their neck? What preconceived ideas did you have around that before your accident?
So before it, all I really knew is my lifeguard training, which was, if there's a suspected spinal cord injury, when someone dives into shallow water, the moves you have to do to make sure they're okay before the paramedics get there. And that's all my knowledge was of it. I didn't really understand what that meant, didn't really understand all that. The only thing I knew about breaking your neck was in the movies, when you get people doing the neck snap sort of thing, but you don't, in the movies they die. So you don't really, that's about all I knew in terms of spinal cord injury as such. So when it happened, I was like, I'm probably gonna be okay. A couple of weeks time, I'll be back to training and I'll be back to normal. It's just a bit of a setback. I had an injury the same time the year before, where I got hit by a car, and I just sort of had a bit of an achy arm for a bit, and I got back to normal. And I thought, it's a little bit more serious than that, but I'll be back to normal. I'll be back training again.
When did you realize that wasn't going to be the case, and what was going through your mind at that time?
So I thought it was going to be okay, because my mum was in hospital, and I think she'd been told by the doctors that I'd never walk in, but they never really explicitly said that to me. But there was I had a major operation to fix the spine with the metal, and just before that, a nurse came from the actual spinal unit. They do like an outreach program to make sure that you understand the situation and what's going to happen over the next month, year, whatever. And she came out and explained sort of the seriousness of the situation, what's going to happen, what's going to be doing, and like the reality of it. And that's when it actually dawned on me. I was like, oh, this is more than just a broken bone. This is a life-changing experience. And then, I had the operation, and it took like 12 hours operation. At that time, I had to have bolts put in my head and my neck extended with some weights on so they could operate on the area. And I was on God knows how much morphine because I thought that polar bears were coming through the ceiling and my hand was a turkey. So yeah,
seriously, straight up.
Yeah, yeah. So you know the fire extinguishers on the ceiling. I thought they were white with a black dot, and I thought it was a polar bear's nose, and it was coming through the ceiling. And then,
wow.
Initially, once I broke the neck, everything down was paralyzed. And when my hand started moving, I wasn't really aware that it was my hand, and I thought it was a turkey because it was the position it was in. So I thought there was a turkey for it as well.
I had an opposite experience. I didn't imagine interesting or fun things like that. I thought of, you know, it was demons and all sorts of really nasty stuff when I was on my drug-induced high. But anyway, turkeys and polar bears sound okay to me, you know.
Yeah, well, it was more funny, and my family, luckily that helped them a little bit because they saw that I was sort of joking around with it and you know I didn't know what was going on, but it definitely lightened up their mood for even if it was for just 5 minutes.
Oh, mate. So you've had the surgery and you'd sort of realised the situation. Did you shift into some state of optimism, or what sort of state of mind did you enter in after that?
Yeah, so because I was so focused on the Olympics, and that was, you know, in 2 years' time, that's what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, that's fine. If I'm going to be in a wheelchair now, I'll just go for the Paralympics, and I'll just carry on training for that. So I was like, okay, when can I get in the pool? When can I start training again? That's all I really cared about. So it was more like I have a purpose, and I want to get to this destination, and this isn't going to stop me. I just have to change change the route slightly. But it's still getting to the goal. It's still the same thing to me. So that was my driving factor right the way through my rehab. And I remember when I was in hospital, because I had to lay on my back for 8 weeks and not move. So it was 4 weeks in my local hospital and then 4 weeks in the rehab hospital. And while I was there, I heard someone say there was a rehab pool available, like a hydrotherapy pool. And I was like, as soon as I heard that, every single moment there was somebody near me that I could see. I was like, when can I get in the pool? When can I get in the pool? When can I get in the pool? And they were like, well, you can't do yet. You have to stay laying down. And it normally takes like 12 weeks for you to be able to start sitting up comfortably. And I was like, no, I need to get back in the pool. So I only learned a couple of years later for a friend at a hospital, but they had a meeting about me and they said that I think it's really important that he gets back in the pool. Probably just so I stop annoying them, probably more than anything. But they were like, yeah, they think it'll be best for my mental well-being that I'm back in the pool training. So they sort of accelerated the process a little bit and got me back in, which was an amazing yet weird experience getting back in the pool. Because normally I was training like 10 times a week for about 2.5 hours of time. And I just run into the pool on a freezing cold morning and it's all cold and you shiver, but then you get going and you're fine. For this, it was going down to the pool in a wheelchair, being helped transferred via a sling into a pool hoist, then getting in. And then when my feet hit the water, I was just expecting that cold feeling that I always got. But because I had no sensation, it was nothing. It was super weird because I hadn't had like a shower or a bath or anything at that point. So I hadn't really felt water on me. And it was weird because it touched and I was like, oh, of course, there's no feeling here. That's bizarre. And then as it came up and it got to sort of where I started to feel, I could feel it sort of coming over my skin and it felt like silk bed sheets almost like coming over me. And I was like, that's the feeling I remember. And it was quite a nice warm pool. So it wasn't quite the cold feeling, but yeah, it's a nice warm pool. And got in and they were like, they had to put floats all over me to make sure I was okay. And I was like, going along and I was like, I don't need this float. And I just started taking off myself. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't need it. I'm fine. And then just started swimming and I started swimming and they were like, oh, that's quite good. And I was actually doing more movement than they actually realized I had at the time. So I was able to have forearm movement. And yeah, it was a really powerful moment in my rehab. And I was so grateful that it was so early on because it was such a catalyst to motivate me to carry on and through that whole process. So from that day on, I was like, we only had access to the pool once a week, but they allowed me down twice a week. And also like getting in the gym there and just putting all the effort into making sure that I was doing all the stuff that I needed to be as independent as possible when I left. So yeah, it was pretty awesome.
I remember my first swim in the pool, a similar pool, and my thing was surfing, and I managed to convince them to put a kayak in the pool and let me have a go at getting on the kayak. And I think it was a bit of a stretch for the team there. You know, they'd never had anybody that wanted to get into a kayak, you know, so soon after their injury. And but you know, there was one physio there who really, you know, Brendan Vercoe is his name, and he understood the place where I was at, and made it happen. And so I was really thankful for that opportunity, and you know, the staff that were able to really take note and give me a personalised plan, if you like, and personalise my rehab. I mean, I felt like I was swimming uphill because my legs they would sink, you know, and you know, I guess pretty quickly on we realised we needed to, you know, put some sort of floating mechanism on my legs so that they weren't, you know, well, first they weren't scraping along the bottom and getting all bloody and torn up, but also to make swimming easier because I could no longer kick. I remember being really exhausted. Did you find that it was really taxing on my my body?
Yeah, definitely. It's even though I was so used to just swimming lots and lots and lots. Yeah, like 10 minutes in, I was like, oh my god, I'm exhausted.
So, what advice would you have for somebody who may be just new into the spinal unit right now?
I always think that the spinal unit is an amazing place to be. Like, there's so much opportunity there to learn, and my advice is always to people: just learn as much as you can. Like, you're never going to get the opportunity to have this much support that around you, because when you come out of hospital, like, it's not necessarily there. So learn from the people, especially the people that have had their injuries and they come in and they do the peer support stuff. Learn from those people. Use as much as the facilities as you can, and just do as much as you can. First of all, it'll give you something to do every day, and it will make you not think about what's happened as much, and it will make you focus on something that's a lot more positive, which is progression. And just try and be consistent. You know, you're going to have days that you not want to go do something. That's fine. Just have a day off and just get back at it tomorrow. But yeah, just make the most of the time you've got, whether that's only a couple of weeks or months or even years. It doesn't matter what it is. Just, really utilize what you got, because it's an amazing opportunity to talk to nurses that have been experienced with other spinal patients. Good opportunity to meet new friends that have also gone through the same thing as you. You can talk about the things quite openly. I've made friends for life because of being open and honest and having a chat with these people, and I still talk to them now regularly, and I know that's the same for quite a lot of other people that have been through this. Physios, the experts in the field, doctors, you can just learn so much. So use it as an opportunity to grow and progress forwards, really.
Yeah, good advice for sure. I wasn't always open to talking to my peer supporters. I struggled with identifying with other wheelchair users. I wasn't ready for that, and I think that's okay. But I certainly learnt once I came out of rehab. I found that there was a real vacant space where I no longer had the support there, and that was when I reached out to, well, actually some of my peers reached out to me. A guy by the name of Quentin Smith, who I've had on the show here, he would just ring me up or email me or text me and just say, "Hey Mike, how's it going?" And I may have been a bit short with him or a bit rude at first, but then I started to realize that he had heaps of knowledge, and he really could fast track my recovery, and so yeah, he became a key person, really, especially when it came to outdoor activities. You know, he'd learned to sail, and he'd been paragliding again, and skiing, and all of these things that I used to love doing. He'd already sort of figured out how to do them, so I could tap into his knowledge and fast track that. So yeah, certainly awesome. What was one of the hardest things you had to overcome during your time in the spinal unit?
I think it was just sort of, looking back, there wasn't necessarily a time that was particularly difficult, I would have thought, because I had such a strong mind focused on getting back into swimming. That pushed me forwards so much forwards mentally and physically. So I don't remember anything like big that was hard. It was just little things like learning new little skills that I might get a little bit frustrated with, but then in time I'd get to learn them. I remember trying to open a chocolate bar for the first time. It took me about an hour and a half of trying to do it, and then trying to figure it out. And yeah, I was just like, no, once I have it, this is going to be the best chocolate bar ever. And it was, because I did eventually get into it. And it's just learning it. And then the second time, because I learned how to do it, the second time it only took me 5 minutes, and then it doesn't take me any time at all now. So just little things to begin with that I was frustrated with. And yeah, I'm quite a laid back person anyway. So I know for some people it can be quite difficult to have to rely on other people, but I'm like, okay, it is what it is, sort of thing. You know, that's just what I have to go through now. And I think I'm quite lucky in that sort of sense with my attitude. And also with having the swimming over the years, it's taught me a lot of stuff to deal with failure. You know, training really hard, get into a competition and not doing as well as you want to. So you go back and you try harder again, you get back, you get better and better over time. And that knowledge that I gained from the years of not succeeding and then eventually succeeding, eventually got to the point where, you know, I could transfer that knowledge and that skill into my actual rehab and be better for it.
It's amazing going into an injury like this with exactly that experience and skill that you had. It does, I believe it makes it a lot easier. And we talked about it on your show a couple of days ago, how having previous experiences with failure and with tough situations can actually prepare you for something like this. You're actually a lot stronger than you realize. I think people they often say, "Oh man, I don't know how you do it, Mike," and this I could never do this, and all these sort of things. And I say, well, actually, human spirit's made up of a lot more than a lot of people realize, and until they're faced with a situation like this,
Yeah, I think humans are it's like built into our DNA to be resilient. We're super adaptable creatures. And I don't think we realize how good we are at adapting to certain situations until we're forced to be put into them. We like to sit in our comfort zones. There's a few people like yourself who likes to push their comfort zones before injury even, doing extreme things. And, I think we sort of thrive in those areas. And that's why there's so many people that love to push themselves. And I think it's only when you do it that you realize how good it is and what you can learn from it. And I think humans are better when they're at the edge of their limits.
Mm. Tell us, Ben, what sort of lasting physical effects, do you have from your injury?
Yeah, so I broke my neck at C7, which is, I've come to realize over the last sort of 10 years, it's quite a rare level as such. It tends to be quite a lot of C4, C5 if you're quadriplegic or higher. And if you're a paraplegic, obviously it's the usual sort of T5 to sort of T10 area, but depending on how you react. But yeah, C7 seems to be quite rare. So a lot of people see me and don't really realize that I'm a quadriplegic because I have a lot of function in my upper body. So I don't have any movement or feeling below my chest. So halfway across my chest down, completely paralyzed. I've got a little bit of tingles and that in my feet occasionally. Like I can tell if someone's touching it, but I don't know what they're doing. It could be stabbing it with a knife or giving me a nice little tickle. So I don't really know. And then, so above that, I got a gradual fade of like feeling, but my chest functions more on one side than the other. Same with my tricep as well. My left tricep is slightly better than my right tricep, but they're pretty. If you saw me, you wouldn't realize that my tricep's been affected at all. So that's normally something that's affected by quads. But yeah, I have no sensation, but I have movement in my triceps. I've got good wrist flexion extension, which is quite rare as well for a quad. But my fingers are pretty normal for a quad. I can extend some of them, but I can't flex in I just relax to flex in. So yeah, that's sort of my ability levels in terms of feeling and movement. On top of that, there's things like bowel and bladder, like anybody with a spinal cord injury, paralyzed bowel, paralyzed bladder, and having to deal with that using different things. Like I use Pyrostine system for my bowels, which is a water irrigation system. Basically, you pump water in your bum and then everything comes out. And then for my bladder, I've had a few solutions over the years. Initially, I had an indwelling catheter through my stomach, suprapubic, and then I've now gone on to a Mitrophanoff, which is similar to suprapubic, but you can use a intermittent catheter. So I'd have to have a catheter in me the whole time now put the catheter in my stomach, wee out into the toilet, and then pack it all away, and all done. So yeah, that. And then there's a few other things that do come along with it as well. My height, my level of injury, things like adrenaline. It's really difficult to build up adrenaline for me. So getting excited and getting fit, I have to really motivate myself and really push something that, adrenaline would normally kick in and help you out there. But because that's depleted because of it, yeah, it's something that it's not really talked about too much. So yeah. And then the other thing is there's something called autonomic dysreflexia, which only affects, I think, very high paras and quads. Basically anything that's happening below your level of injury, like painful or inconvenient, like if you've got a full bladder or bowels or you've got an ingrown toenail, it sends a signal to you. You're trying to send a signal up, but it's going back and forth, doesn't know what to do. So your blood pressure just keeps rising and rising and rising until it's solved. So yeah, I have to be really careful with that kind of stuff. Because say I've got a really full bladder, I can't feel it. My blood pressure will start to rise. I'll get blotchy. I'll get sweaty. I'll get headachy. One of the side effects is impending sense of doom, which is just as bad as it sounds. You feel like you're going to die, which is not the nicest side effect. And then, and then with that, you either have to sort out the problem or take some medication until you can solve out the problem. Otherwise, it's just going to keep rising until, you have a stroke. And so, it can be pretty scary. Luckily, that doesn't happen. It sounds scary, but that's not a day-to-day problem. That's if something happens, that's what's going to happen problem. So, yeah.
I hear a lot of people in New Zealand anyway, the doctors don't tend to understand that. The mainstream physicians don't really understand what's happening. And so if a person calls up or goes to accident emergency and says, I've got autonomic dysreflexia, sometimes people don't know what to do about that, which makes it even more dangerous, I suppose.
Yeah, I've had a few occasions. One specifically, I went into hospital and I had so I've got a card that says exactly what it is, and so they can type into their computers or whatever. But then the people I had, they didn't understand that. And I was like, I just need my bladder emptied. I had a block catheter, and I was like, I need my bladder emptied. You just need to drain it or replace it. And they didn't really understand what was going on. And they thought because I had a high temperature and I was going blotchy, they thought I had a fever. So they just started taking blood tests. So I know I just need my bladder emptied and I'll be fine. Like, I can't do it at home. You need to do it for me. And they were like, no, it's okay. We know what we're doing. Like, and then eventually it came to my friend who's a nurse in the hospital, because I was like, I just called her up and was like, can you come down here? Because she knew about it. So she came down from her ward and fixed it all up. And then, I was out within an hour. So.
Yeah, man. The things you've got to navigate, eh? And I suppose the lesson there is, if you have the knowledge and you understand, that's really important, because you can't always guarantee that another person will, especially if you're traveling in another country or there's language barriers, or, you've really got to take control of understanding your own situation. And most often you get these things sort of drilled into you at rehab, around pressure injury prevention and autonomic dysreflexia, things like that. So you're kind of lucky, but, pay attention to it. Because it, may save your life. So, all right. So you're out of rehab. You've kind of got this new goal or focus on. You realize you can swim still. What unfolded in your life from that moment?
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting time because, all I wanted to do was get back in the pool and swim. So that's exactly what I did. I couldn't train anywhere near as much as I was training before. No way I was going to be able to do 10 sessions of 2.5 hours every day, plus a couple of gym sessions a week. That wasn't going to happen. I was getting fatigued quite quickly. So I was going down to just 3 half-an-hour sessions. And that's all I could manage within a week. I couldn't obviously train with my old club because nowhere near the ability level I was before. It took me about 1.5 minutes per length slower now. So a lot slower, a lot more different. So I had to train by myself quite a lot of the time. I couldn't really, part of my love for swimming was the social aspect of it, having my friends, hang out with them, laughing and that during sets, and then hanging out afterwards. And I wasn't able to do that. And also because of where I had my injury, I had it at home where my mum lives, and I was living all over the place, it's like Australia, and I was down at my boarding school, so I didn't have any friends around me. And all my friends were in swimming as well. I didn't really have anybody outside of the swimming world that I was really friends with. And yeah, that was really hard on me. And I continued anyway because I was like, I love this sport. I want to do it. I want to do it, carry on. But I did sort of have a word with myself in hospital. So I would only ever keep doing the swimming if I really enjoyed it. I was like, I almost died that day. Life's too short to just do something just because I'm good at it. I was like, I really need to enjoy it at the same time. I became national champion still, did really well, got on like programs to fast track me towards, getting to the London Olympics. Unfortunately, it was a bit too soon after my injury to go to the London Olympics. But I carried on for a year after that, but the love for the sport died away a bit, and I wasn't really into it as much as I was. I just felt I was doing it because I was good at it. So I had another word with myself. It's like, are you just going to do this because you're good? Like, it's making you unhappy. So I decided to quit, which was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life. And followed that was a year of, it's the worst year I've had in my life following that, because ever since I was 9 years old, all I wanted to do was be an Olympic swimmer. And this is the first time in my life that I didn't have that goal, didn't have that purpose. And it was then that I was actually not in a good place. Like, a lot of people assume because I had a life-changing accident, that's when the depression was set in. But yeah, it was actually 3 years on once I quit the swimming. And yeah, it was about a year period of just not really doing much with my life, trying new things. I tried to get into art, but most of my days was just getting up, playing on my PlayStation, seeing my mum a couple of times a week, and then that's pretty much it for about a year. So it wasn't a good time in my life.
It affects your whole identity, right? And I've had this moment once before in my life where everything was riding on the outcome of this goal that I had. My self-worth, my ego, my image, what I thought my life was all about, and it all just comes crashing down around you, right? And you feel empty for quite a while. You feel like, whoa, what am I going to do now? So how did you, it's in some cases, it's just a process you got to go through. I don't know if there's any answers, but there must have been a moment where you snapped out of that and you found something again. Could you describe that?
Yeah, it was interesting what you're saying about your identity, because I was like, I'm Ben Clark, I'm a swimmer. That was just my thing, I was a swimmer. Outside of that, I didn't really know much about myself. I was the guy that swam, and I was good at it. So yeah, it's interesting saying about that similar experience for yourself.
Do you think how would you suggest that somebody, what's a healthy way to approach that? Okay, so you've got this goal and you want to be the best in the world at something, or not even the best in the world at something, but you've wrapped around your life, that the two are inextricably linked, what you do and yourself. So how do you untangle those, or how do you in a healthy way proceed?
I think it's good to focus on, I watched a guy talking about it, and it really it was way after all this had happened. And I was like, that makes sense to me quite a lot. And it was like, a lot of people say, like, when somebody asks you, what do you do? Or like, who are you? And then you say, like, my name's Bob and I'm an electrician, or my name's Fred and I'm a builder. Instead of talking like that way, it should be like, my name's Ben and I'm a good person. And trying to think about things that you can actually control, because there might be a future where an electrician is a void job and you can't do it anymore. So your whole identity's gone. Whereas if you focus on things you can think about, in terms of, you can be a good person, you can, I'm a really good father, if, for example, that could be something. And it'd be something that, I know that that's true. That's never going to go away. There's never going to be a time in my life when I'm not going to be that. And it's something that I can work on. I can be better at it. And even if it dips down at points, you can still work your way back up to being that again. So it's always, I think it's important to focus on things that, it's within your control. Like, as much as we think I thought that swimming was within my control, but it wasn't. And even if I didn't have the accident, there would be a day that I wasn't going to swim anymore. You know, there would have been a day that I retired, and then what I would have been further down the line, I would have had even less of a clue of who I was as a person. So I'm almost kind of glad I had the accident quite early in life, because it did change my perspective as such.
Well, interesting. So you were talking before I asked you that question about how you got out of this, you know, the worst time in your life. What can you describe that for us?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm quite a self-aware person, and I knew that something wasn't right. I knew I wasn't in a good headspace, and my mum knew it too. And I was trying new things to try, like I said, I got into art, and I did a few other things along the line. I did a little bit of gym, but nothing too serious. And I was like, I need to do something with my life. And my mum was like a bit more forceful with it. She was like, you need to do something with your life. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm trying to do stuff, but I can't find something that I love. And she was like, well, why don't you just go to the swimming club and see if they need any help? So I went down to my local swimming club, had a chat with the coach there, he was just new that summer as well. And I said, do you need any help? Like, this is my career. They already knew about me anyway, my story. And he was like, yeah, how much do you know about strength and conditioning? I was like, well, that was one of my favorite bits about swimming, was learning all about that side, because it was different to the swimming and I really enjoyed it. So I was like, yeah, I could run these sessions for you if you want. And they're like, okay, here you go, just do it. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, while you're doing that, I could do some paperwork. So it's great. So yeah, I got into that, and I was instantly loved it. But there was a point when it was only 2 weeks in, and the swimmers had come back from a competition, and they were like, I've seen the improvements already. And one kid just said thank you to me, and that was it. Like, my love for swimming was straight back, exactly what it was before. That same feeling I got when I was standing on a podium, I felt for them getting on a podium. And it's something I never ever thought I would have got from coaching. I was just doing it to try something new. I wasn't expecting to have a love for it. And honestly, before my accident, I thought that coaches were people that had just failed in their swimming career. This was just a backup plan. And I never thought that it was a genuine sort of, like, you could really make something yourself in it.
Wow.
And obviously going through that now, it's just like, that was actually the catalyst that took me out of that depression and back into living a life that I wanted to lead.
For those that are suffering with their mental health and even depression, what advice would you give them? Like, if they're in that moment, what's some good advice to prevent that from spiraling further?
So one of my favorite quotes in the world is, there's no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. And it's focusing on not what you think is going to make you happy, but actually doing what makes you happy. I think we do so much chasing in our lives. We think, oh, if we do this job that we don't like, it will get us the house or the wife or the car that we want, and that will make me happy. And it's a pitfall that many people fall into, because you just assume if you've got lots of money or you're successful, you're happy, but that's not always the case. In fact, quite a lot of people that do get success, they say that money isn't everything, because success is quite hollow without the happiness, really. And I think it's really important to focus on your happiness. And when I did that, the success came naturally. Like, I didn't even have to think about being successful. It was just focusing on being happy again. It's like, I was loving the swimming coaching. So I was like, okay, I'll do this. Like, it doesn't matter if I don't succeed at that. I feel like I'm succeeding in a way which makes me happy. And that's what really drove me out of that phase of my life.
You know, people can, we can come up with an excuse why we can't be happy. So for example, I really want to go and do this, but I can't because I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough time, or I've got all these responsibilities. What would you say to that?
Well, it's difficult, because I've never really been in a situation where I've had too much responsibility, because I've never had a kid, I've never been married, I've never had to, I'm lucky enough in the UK that the government pays for my housing and that. So I've never really been in a situation where I've been like, I've got this responsibility. But what I can see from an outside perspective is that if you don't look after yourself and your own happiness, then none of the other thing is going to matter anyway, because it's going to seriously have a detrimental effect on those things that you think are responsible, and they're going to go away if you can't, that's going to fade away. Like, say you've got a job that you need to I need to work really hard at it and I'll do really well, but you're going to get burnout. You're not going to you're going to hate it. You're going to get even worse with your depression. And I think it's important to really prioritize and realize what's important in life. And that's nearly always the little things. And it's like, first of all, you got to think about food, shelter, water. And then after that, it's like things that matter, like relationships and friends and family. And then like jobs and that can come later. There's always going to be another job. As much as you don't think there might be, there will be. And there's always, you can always have like a fallback system. But yeah, it's obviously difficult for me to sort of relate to that because I've not really had to have too much responsibility in my life. So yeah.
No, I totally get what you're saying there. We're talking about a hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, essentially, you know. And I think you did right. The friendships you have, your relationships are way more important than anything external, jobs or money or possessions. And you can find, my wife is really, really good at looking at the little things. I tend to have this carrot out in front of my head looking for the big achievements in life, where she gets pleasure out of picking a wild bunch of flowers or, you know, just running into a friend and having a laugh, you know, very, very simple pleasures. And if, you know, she does that daily, then, you know, happiness will flow. So I've got a lot to learn from her there. And what you're saying, I think is spot on. 100%.
Yeah, I think it's important to fall in love with the process, whatever that process might be. Fall in love with the process of it, because the end of the journey is a split second, a minute, but your process to go through is years and years and years. And yeah, there's no point of sacrificing your happiness and then just get to a point and you go, oh, and then it's gone. And it's like, oh, was that worth it? Like when you get to the end of your life, and you've got piles of money and a huge house, but you're sat there and you're depressed and you're lonely, like you're going to look back and you're going to have regrets on like, oh, I should have spent more time with my families or made more friends or just gone on that trip to Bali and by myself or whatever it might be.
I'm keen to talk to you about your trip to Bali. But, you know, I think you're absolutely right. I hear of, you know, these sort of entrepreneurs that, you know, are in the media and they, you know, they make this company, they make a change in the world, then they've completed that. And then you often hear them saying, oh, and then I was just so empty. There was nothing there. I was striving for this thing. And they say, you know, you got to enjoy the ride, you know, you got to enjoy the, you know, part of the adventure is not climbing the mountain. It's actually, or not getting to the top. It's actually the whole process. You know, it's the journey, right? So,
yeah, and there's something that I'm fascinated about in terms of psychology, which is called post-success depression, and it's something that a lot of Olympic athletes go through. You know, they train their whole lives, every day in and out, and then they get to the end of their thing. They achieve, they do what they've been doing their whole life, and they get to the top, do massively well, and then it's like, now what? What comes next? And they, you know, because they've been so focused on the sport, and you have to be able to be the top. You can't have outside focuses. You almost can't have contingency plans. If you are, then it means your mind is focused away from what you're doing, and only the people that focus achieve. So yeah, there's a point where I think it's a massive amount of them have depression as soon as they finished. Like, you know, they come down off the high after the parties at the Olympic Games, and they come home and they're like, oh, I don't know what else to do now. Yeah. So yeah, it's always something that fascinates me, and yeah, it's interesting to see.
So how did your coaching progress?
Yeah, so I progressed over the years, and I managed to get my coaching qualifications for the swimming as well. And from that, I did a bit more of the strength and conditioning work, and also I got to help out on poolside, which is a really good experience because their head coach there, he was a new coach, and he was really good. He's gone on to coach some of the national teams now as well. So really good, like mentoring off him and learning the ropes and all that. As I was doing it though, I wanted to do something more in the wheelchair sort of like range. You know, I had this knowledge from swimming, and I was like, I'm so glad to be giving back, and it feels really amazing. But I also have this knowledge of being disabled as well, and I wanted to do something in that sort of field. And I wasn't really sure for quite a while what that would be. I looked into doing paraswimming and helping out with that kind of stuff, but it's not as easy to get into because there's obviously not as many disabled people as there are able-bodied people. So if you want to train them, you have to travel all over the country. And at the time, that wasn't really a possibility for me. So one day I was just looking online for exercises for myself because I was in a happier mood. I was like, okay, I'll start getting to the gym a bit more, start to focus a little bit more on what I'm doing. And I was just typed into YouTube like anybody does, just search for wheelchair exercises. And I only found 2 videos. One was some old people and they were just sat in their chair and they were just swinging their arms. I think only one of them was in a wheelchair even, and like the rest were just sat down and they're just swinging their arms a little bit. And I was like, well, that's a bit too easy. So I found another one, and there's this guy who's basically the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the wheelchair world, and absolutely huge guy who had way more function than I had. It could stand up even a little bit and do some exercise. And I was like, well, where's the bit in between for somebody who wants to get a bit more fit than just swinging your arms, and somebody who doesn't want to be a bodybuilder? There's a huge gap there, and I fall into that as well. So I was like, well, I've got my knowledge of swimming. I do the strength and conditioning work, and I know about disability because I'm disabled. So why don't I just start it myself? So that's why I started Adapt to Perform. And that was all about just, I thought it'd be a fun thing to do on the side. And yeah, I thought I'd post a couple of videos, see what happens and see the response. And it didn't like blow up or anything, but I got some response back from a few people saying like, I've never seen anything like this. This is really great. I'd love to see more. And it was just that initial sort of thing. And I was like, okay, I'll do some more then. And I've done some more. And then now 3 years later, I've made about 130 videos. About 80 of them are workout videos. Some of them are a bit like how to transfer as a quadriplegic, how to get dressed as a quadriplegic. So a little bit more lifestyle things. And yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Again, it hasn't ever blown up. It's been gradually growing over the years. And I kind of like that. I don't really ever want it to blow up as such. I want it to be my full-time thing, and I want it to be something that I can live off, but I never want it to be this huge viral thing. Because I think when things go viral, you have your 5 minutes of fame, and then you're constantly chasing that again. It's like, I kind of want to just gradually grow over the years as such. So yeah, with that, I absolutely love it. I put loads of effort into it. I'm working on it every single day. And yeah, just if I'm not filming, I'm editing, and if I'm not editing, I'm planning for the next video. So yeah, it's good, and it gives me another purpose in life. So,
what have you learned through doing this YouTube channel?
So on a actual sort of physical level as such, I've learned how to film. I've learned how to edit. I've learned how to upload to YouTube, how to promote stuff, be my own PA, PR, everything. Just trying to, figuring all that, because all I knew was swimming. So yeah, it was like a whole new area of expertise for me that I had to go and learn. So I did what I was trying to do with the exercises, and I YouTubed it all and learned everything through YouTube. Got the right camera, got the right microphone, and yeah, just tried to learn over the years. And yeah, it's gradually got better and better. Like the video quality's got better. I've learned how to use the editing software a little bit better. I'm nowhere near an expert. It's something that I would like to eventually hire someone to do all that stuff, because I love the exercise part of it. Although I've learned all this stuff, it's still not my, I don't have a love for it as such. I have the love for the actual exercising. And that's actually funny with the lives at the moment, because I don't have to do any editing. It's like, this is great. I'm like a kid in the playground at the moment. I'm just doing exercise on camera and talking to people. So
that's so good. And how receptive is your gym, and what support did you get from them, if any?
Sorry, can you say that again? It went a little bit.
So what sort of hoops did you have to jump through with your gym to record your exercises? And, did you have to get special permission? How supportive were they, if they were at all?
So just after I started, I wanted to change gyms anyway, because the access to mine wasn't, it had steps to get in, so I had to be lifted in and out of the gym. So I was like, I should really go to another gym anyway. So I went to my local fitness first. I went to a few others, and I didn't like that. I always try and pick a gym that's got a good feel about it. I'd rather have a good feel that has, if it has one step, I'd rather have a gym that I enjoy going to that's got a step than somewhere that's perfectly accessible that's just got grumpy staff. So I went to my fitness first, which doesn't have an automatic door. So, but the staff there, I just give it a knock and they just come out, they let me in, and they've been super, super welcoming from day one. They've given me total allowance to film as much as I want. They just said, if just don't film other people here. That's all that we require. And I've given them feedback over the years on how they can make the gym better, and they've taken it on board. They've moved some equipment to make it like nearer to where I can access easier, or move stuff out of the way so there's a bigger gap for me to get past. They've bought a ski erg as well, which has been great because that's not just great for me, but it's been really good for their personal trainers. They use it all the time now as well, so they want to get more of those in. So yeah, they've been really accommodating, and it was really important for me to get a good relationship with the manager there and put these inputs in, and having a manager that also was willing to do it as well, because I don't think every gym manager is willing to, but to find a gym that did that was really good. So
tell us about some of the exercises that you recommend the most, or what you found the most beneficial for yourself.
Yeah, so when I'm in the gym, the main thing, so cardio-wise, ski erg is the best thing ever, I think. When we're pushing our wheelchairs, we have a lot of work on our shoulders and our front deltoids and internal rotation, and that just exacerbates our rounded shoulders. Typing on the computer on our phones all day, pushing our wheelchairs, the shoulders get rounded forwards. But when we're doing the ski erg, it does the opposite way. And it's so great to be able to do a cardio exercise that is the opposite of pushing. Just to mix it up even, like just to, you don't, with a hand cycle even, you're still in front of you and you still got your shoulders internally rotated. So to be able to do something that's external is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I couldn't recommend ski erg enough. And the machine I use the most outside of that in the gym is the cable machine, because it's so versatile. And for a wheelchair user, you could just have a cable machine and a ski erg and you get every single exercise you could ever need from it. So whether it's bicep curls, tricep extensions, chest press, lat pull downs, anything you could really think of, you can do on it. And yeah, I like to focus on making sure that, like, for me, I'm at a point where I think I'm strong enough and I don't really need to get any stronger. So I don't focus too much on progressive overload where I'm trying to get stronger and bigger muscles. No, I'm at a point where I'm independent enough that I don't need to be any more than that. So I like to focus on what I call prehab, and it's making sure that you're not getting injured as such. So making sure that the little muscles, all the supporting ones, like my rotator cuff muscles, because when we come in like this, the rear rotator cuff muscles get stretched and they get weak from that, and that's where injuries can come in because your shoulders are out of place. So I like to make sure that I get good posture, making sure I'm stretching a lot, making sure I'm getting good mobility in, and making sure that my joints are as healthy as possible. So for me, it's more about maintaining what I've got rather than trying to get really strong. So,
hey, I've got a question for you. I know the importance of maintaining muscle balance, and I experience pain from overuse. Any tips on actually doing your exercises and staying motivated on that? I've got exercise actually just sitting on my wall here that a physio prescribed for me, and I've got exercise bands, and I'm now just currently evaluating a ski erg versus a rowing machine. What are some tools you can use to stick with it?
Yeah, so one tool that I like to talk about, it's quite a fun tool almost that I used to do when I was swimming. It was just switch your brain off and do it. It's like sometimes when you start thinking about it, you've already lost the battle. Like sometimes you just got to turn that brain off and get in. It's what I used to do when getting up in the morning, because say it's a cold winter's morning and I've got to walk to the pool and jump in a freezing cold pool. It's like, if I think about this, there's no way this is going to happen. So I have to just just do it. And then I just start moving, get to it and just do it. And then that.
Is it about finding a routine? Is it a routine thing, or like setting a specific time, so that you're it becomes part of your daily habits. And on that, when is a good time to exercise? Morning, evening, during the day? Is there any particular time that's better than others?
I always say that a little is better than nothing, and do what you can, because sometimes you can almost force yourself into a routine that you hate just because you think it's the right one to do. So saying like there's a specific time of day to do it, that means like, oh, if I can't do it today, that means I'll never do it the rest of the day. It's quite important to be flexible and just making sure you're consistent over time. If that means you have to have a day off, but it means that you'll be okay for the next couple of days, that's fine. Just as long as you're consistent over time. Consistency is one of the biggest factors to improving where you are over time. And to help with that, I like to do some goal planning. So in terms of like a big picture thing, I like to actually write that down and do a thing called SMART goals. I won't go into it too much because I could talk for about an hour and a half about SMART goals if I wanted to. But if you Google SMART goals, it'll tell you how to write down goals that are, well, the thing is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-based. And it just gives you the resources that you need to be able to actually achieve your goals. And you can write those down. You can put them up on the wall in big letters. You can put it on your fridge. I've got a magnetic whiteboard on my fridge, and I put up my goals and make sure that I know what I'm achieving. It's not just, I want to do this, and then you put it up there, because that's never going to work. You need to have it following SMART goals. It means that you've got a specific goal that is achievable, and you actually write down the steps of how you're going to achieve that as well. It's not just, I have a dream. It's more like, I have a plan, and this is the plan, and this is what I got to do each day to achieve what I want to achieve. So that's what I do for like big things. For example, there's a big event that I'm meant to be doing in September, which is a big swim that I want to be doing. So I've written down the plan for that. When it's more small things, like I just want to improve this shoulder's, not as good posture as I like it to be at the moment. It's kind of, because I've been sitting indoors a bit more. So I just know that I'd make sure that I'm focused on that. So I just write down a little thing saying every morning that I'm doing these exercises to make sure I'm getting in the work in. So I know I don't need to put down a big, I don't need to write down a huge schedule and that. I just need to make sure that each and every day that I'm doing that. And I like to link it to other things. So if in the morning I'm doing my morning routine and I'm getting dressed, there's a stretch that's really good for when I'm lying on the bed. So and I get tired sometimes putting my clothes on. So I just put a part of the clothes on, do the stretch to relax, and then just get back to dressing again. And it just fits it into my daily routine, and just doing things like that just makes it easier. And once you get into a routine, I can't remember the exact days, but they say once you've done it after certain days, you almost forget about that you're doing it. It's just natural. Like cleaning your teeth every day, it just comes naturally. You don't even have to think about it. I think it's like 28 days or something like that. So
interesting. When I'm sitting on the toilet in the morning, one of the things I do is I kind of, the toilet's in a bit of a corner, and I stretch my my pecs that way, and it's kind of like I'm sort of I've kind of got to wait for nature to take its course, so I might as well do something while I'm waiting. And one of those things is stretching, which actually is, like you say, it's like brushing your teeth. I do it sort of almost instinctively now. So it's finding ways you can integrate things like that with your everyday. Maybe it's you take a tea break, and while the jug is boiling, you're doing some TheraBand exercises or something. Like just filling in those time gaps. I think it's smart. Never realized that I actually did that, but there's a few moments there where I do.
Yes.
I'd like to talk about a couple more things before we wrap up. One is the process of becoming a personal trainer. What was that like as a quadriplegic?
So initially, in the UK, we get benefit systems. So financially, I knew that I didn't have enough money to support myself. So I reached out to a couple of charities, and the Instagram's gone down. You can join. Should we start that again in a second, or?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. It was the hour limit, I think.
Hour limit. Yeah.
I always see that as a good sign, the hour limit.
Just trying to.
Let me know when you're back in.
Well, I don't know how to start it again.
If you go to the home page and swipe left,
yeah,
and then you got it.
I see it, and then camera down the bottom, and then go live.
It's the furthest left one.
Okay, I got it.
Awesome.
Instagram Live newbie. So here we are again. Take 2.
Got to find you in there.
Got Ben Clark with us for talking about, at the moment, we're talking about fitness, and which is a fascinating thing. There you are.
Right. I've sent the request.
Excellent. There we go. View the request. You go live. We're back live. So yeah, the fitness side of things is really interesting. If you had to choose between a ski erg and a rowing machine.
1 second, sorry, the audio's gone a bit funny.
Yeah, it's all good. Hey, if you've just joined us, I've got Ben Clark here from Adapt to Perform. Ben's a quadriplegic personal trainer. He's a fitness guru and former budding Olympic swimmer. And we've been talking about his journey after he broke his neck at the beach. And so let's continue.
Yeah. So what were we talking about? Sorry, I've lost the train of thought now.
Well, we were talking about routines with exercises, and then I asked you the question about the what you'd recommend for cardio for somebody that has arm function that allows them to I guess pull things. So a ski erg machine versus a rowing machine was the two that I guess I'm personally evaluating at the moment. And if are there other options that I could look at?
Yeah, so with the rowing machine, I'll try and give a bit of demonstration here. So your range of motion is from straight arm out here to here. So this is your range of motion with this rowing machine. If you've got core function, you can get a bit more in because you can get that stretch and that pull back, which does sort of help with the back muscles as well. So that's something that you can factor in with that. With the ski erg, the thing I like is that you're going, I've gone blurry on the, should come back in a second, but you're going right from full extension all the way through to full extension again. So it's going for a full range of motion, which is, something that's really good, I find personally, just because the cables are separate. So you can go past your body, which is something that's quite fun and quite versatile. And it does, the rowing machine I know needs some, there we go, back. The rowing machine needs almost like a seat that you can sit in. That's adapted, whereas a ski erg you can use straight out of the gate. You can bolt it to your wall and you can go straight away. So I think it's a bit more versatile. In terms of the actual exercise itself, I don't think there's much difference in terms of an able-body using a rowing machine and a ski erg. I think the ski erg uses the arms a little bit more and the rowing machine uses the legs a little bit more, but I think it balances itself out and you get a pretty good workout anyway.
Nice. That's good to know. Is there any particular brands out there that are better than others, or is there much to choose from?
I think it's just Concept 2 that do the ski erg. I've never seen anybody else. But if you wanted to set up your own one at home and you don't have a spare £800, just get some light resistance bands that are extremely stretchy. So ones that do go through quite a range of motion. Just put those up high and just use those. Just make sure you attach to something that's not going to fling off the wall and hit you in the face.
Hey, that's cool. I'll definitely look into that as an interim until I find the funds. Tell us about travel. You've traveled a wee bit as a quadriplegic, and I'd also like to know a bit about dating, but maybe we'll start with travel. Have you got any tips for our listeners about traveling as a wheelchair user and in particular a quadriplegic? Yeah,
so originally when I first had my injury, I didn't think I'd be able to travel because I was so reliant on carers coming in all the time. And the only holiday I got to go on was, it was a month trip to Australia, so it wasn't that bad. But it was with my mum, so it wasn't quite the same as, I was about 23 years old at the time, and going with your on holiday with your mum isn't something you want to be doing for the rest of your life. So yeah, I sort of thought that holidays and that, and I absolutely love to travel as well. I did so much with swimming as a kid. Never really got to see much because I was just seeing swimming pools and hotel rooms. So something that I really wanted to carry on doing. And it wasn't actually until I met Alice and she helped me she helps me a lot when we travel. So really, without her, I don't think the travel will be as possible. But since then, I think I can actually travel by myself. So I'll go into that a little bit more about why that is. And we travel a lot. Like last year, we went away from the house every month. So every month we were somewhere different. So we traveled 12 times last year, whether that's somewhere in the UK just for a weekend, or whether that's going on a longer trip, which is what we did when we went to Bali. So yeah, Bali was an absolutely incredible experience. And I got invited out there with a charity. So the charity that helped me through my personal training qualifications, they paid for me to go out there and work with another charity called Bali Sports Foundation. So in Bali, if you're disabled, you're sort of considered a curse on your family, sort of locked away, and they believe in karma. So you think, oh, you must have done something bad in your previous life if you're now disabled in this life. So yeah, they're sort of locked away, and there's a charity out there run by an Australian guy who basically tries to find these disabled people and get them out of the house and playing sports. So yeah, the absolutely fascinating thing they're doing, an amazing difference they're making to people's lives, because they're getting out, they're getting into para sports. Some of them are representing their country in Paralympics. And yeah, I got invited out to do one of their summer schools. So it's a new thing that they set up in conjunction with a university here in the UK. Regain, the charity I work with, and Bali Sports Foundation, all linking together to do this summer sports school. So I went out there and did my goal planning. That's why I say I can talk about SMART goals for hours on end if I want to, because I'm there for teaching purposes as well. So yeah, taught there, managed to do some sports with them out there as well. Did some wheelchair rugby tournaments and some various bits and pieces, and just, yeah, help those people through it. And we were saying earlier about like people saying that they don't have, they've got all these commitments and all these things. And it's when you strip things back and you realize what's important in life. And when I was in Bali, these people literally had they had no education. They had, their family had rejected them. They, everything was against them in life. They were disabled, but they were so happy and they were so content in their life. And it didn't matter that they didn't have all these nice things. It didn't matter all that, because they appreciated what they did have. And obviously, thanks to the charity, some of them had, made careers for themselves. And it was incredible that was their outlook on life. And it really helped. I was already sort of in the stage where I was feeling that way, but it's helped solidify my feelings and experiences that it was what I was thinking was important. Like the small things in life were important. It wasn't all about, making sure that, I'm just trying to succeed. It was making sure that I was happy. So yeah, that was a very eye-opening experience. And yeah, when you were saying about what should people do if they feel like they're stuck in their system, travel. Go and see how people live in a country that's way less off than we are, and you'll soon realize that happiness can be achieved at any sort of monetary level.
Wow, it's an incredible insight. Yeah, I've certainly found that through my traveling prior to this, just realizing how lucky we have it, and in fact, how lucky everyone can look at how lucky they have it, no matter where you are, right? I think that's the interesting thing. No matter if you're living in a slum in India, you can still appreciate something in your life. But us as white Western people, more so than anyone in the world, I think.
Definitely.
Tell us about.
Yeah, it was incredible.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, tell us about Alice and tell us about dating.
Yeah, so when I had my accident, I was sort of with a girl, and that didn't really last long past being in hospital. Obviously, it's a massive strain on anybody to go through that, especially if you've only just started dating and that. It's not really, so that wasn't ever really going to go anywhere because of that. And then sort of when I came out, I wasn't really interested in girls as such. I was sort of interested in just swimming again. So just sort of carried on with doing that. Dated a few people over the years, but nothing really serious. I don't know if there was ever a time when I thought that my disability was going to affect it or not, but I remember, because when I started dating again, it's when Tinder and Plenty of Fish sort of started to be a real thing, rather than just sort of this weird thing where creepy people hang out. It was a real mainstream thing coming into it. So I remember initially trying to think about like, do I tell people I'm in a wheelchair to begin with, or do I leave it until they get to know me a bit better? And I thought it's just best if I was like, what would I think in their situation? I was like, I just want to be open and honest. And I think that's the best thing that I did in terms of the dating side of it, was just be open and honest and be exactly who I am, because it's part of me. I'm not going to be able to change that. And it's actually quite a relief. I call it, if you mind my language, you might have to bleep this out, but the bullshit filter, because it filters out basically all the people that, you know, I always think that if I wasn't disabled, would I want to date somebody who sees that as a problem? And the fact that I've got it means that I've actually already filtered out all those people that wouldn't want to do that. And yeah, it really helps. Yeah, it really helped sort of regain my confidence when I was more open about it, because the people that I was meeting and dating at the time, they were the sort of people that I actually wanted to be with, not just because they were okay with a disability, but they were just genuinely nice, kind people. And yeah, it actually helps in the early days of dating and that. And then in terms of Alice, I actually sort of gave up on online dating. I wasn't really in a place where I wanted to do it. I started my coaching. I just started Adapt to Perform as well, and I wasn't really focused on it, but my profile was on sites anyway. And one of my very good friends, Emily, she messaged me saying that my friend saw you on Tinder and liked the look of you, thought you were interesting, and was like, and she knew that my friend Emily had a friend in a wheelchair. Was like, oh, is that him? I was like, yeah, that's him. And she was like, I'd like to meet him. I'd like to get to know him more. So yeah, we although it was through online dating, it was actually for a mutual friend that we met each other. So yeah, we went on a date to begin with, but Emily came along and one of Alice's other friends came along. We had a nice night out at the pub, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. I wasn't really expecting much from it. I was just like, oh, this is cool, get to hang out with more people. I was so focused on what I was doing at the time, I didn't really have time to hang out with friends as such. But it was just like a nice difference to do that. And as I said, I didn't have many friends in the area after my injury, so to have some friends was really awesome. And just sort of, we hung out a few more times. The second day, actually, we were meant to meet up with Emily again, and then Emily purposely, accidentally cancelled on us at the last minute, said she couldn't come, so Alice and I would be alone. And we sat up until about 3 a.m. just talking. Apparently I did most of the talking, so I must have been a bit nervous. But yeah, I did it. And then, yeah, I asked her out one day, and it was, yeah, it's been pretty much amazing ever since. Then, yeah, it's been something that, so I'll tell you what's crazy about it, because Alice has her own business, which she is a senior companion for elderly people. And that means she goes into different buildings and like just sort of hangs out with them, takes them out for coffee, shopping, all this kind of thing. Just like the fun side of like, for her, she says she has lots of grandparents and they get, they might be lonely and they just have that bit of company. So that's her business. She's got people working for her. But she actually had a client in the block of flats that I live in, and she had that client for 3 years, and we had never met in the corridors or anything, and she'd be coming in 3 times a week, every single week.
Wow.
And I never met her. And yeah, and then we met through this other way. And then we realized she realized when she found out where I lived that it was the same building. She was like, oh, I didn't know you lived there, sort of thing. I was like, yeah, I do. And then it was like this crazy thing, because when she started coming to that client, I was in that depressed stage. I wasn't ready to meet anybody. I wasn't the happy person that I was when we actually met. And she was saying she had gone through a bad breakup. She wasn't in the right place. And I felt once I started to be happy because of what I was doing with the coaching and Adapt to Perform, it was almost like we were meant to meet each other at that point in our lives, because we think if we met each other before, then it wouldn't have worked because we wouldn't have been in the right place. So I really believe that my path to being happy is what snowballed into meeting Alice. And yeah, it was only because I was willing to put myself out there, because I was happy that came around. Mm-hmm. And meeting her has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. And I think I owe that all down to being happy, basically. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. And as I said, we travel a lot. We do a lot together. We're never ever bored of each other. We can spend we're quarantining together, and we don't argue. We just excited to see each other every single day. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Sounds just exactly like love, mate. I'm super stoked for you. That's awesome. Just on the mechanics of it, how did you broach the subject of sex and intimacy?
I think with me being really laid back and Alice being quite inquisitive and being open as well, it just worked quite naturally in terms of talking about it. So just coming up with it, it was just really normal, to be honest. And I think that's quite important to know about the whole relationship. Like, if you've been listening to this story that I've said, if you take the wheelchair out of it, it's no different to anybody else. Like, it doesn't make any difference. Like, it's just a normal love story sort of thing as such. And yeah, it's never ever been an issue for her, me being disabled. She says it what makes me interesting. And she thinks it's she says I can't run away from her. So yeah, it's just been one of those.
That's funny.
She says if she ever wants to get away with me, she just finds a set of stairs and goes up it. So
oh, that's brilliant.
So mate. Yeah, so it's never approaching that sort of topic. It's never really been an issue. It was same with everything. We have such a good open dialogue, and it's always saying that the key to a good relationship is communication, and it's so true no matter where you are in it. And that's a two-way conversation, not just a one-way conversation as well. So you've got to be open and honest with your feelings. And if you feel like you can't, then you got to find a way that you can, because if you can't open up and be who you are as a person, or you can't be honest, then it's never going to work in the long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Mate, you're a wise man. I've really enjoyed chatting with you today. Tell us, what does the future hold for you, and where can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, so I'll start with where people can find me. That's Adapt to Perform, which is here. Got the branding up. So yeah, that's out on YouTube, which is where all the exercise videos are, and a bit more about like transferring and stuff like that if you're a quadriplegic as such. If you go to my Instagram, it's a little bit different. It's more about mental health stuff and just a little bit of fun and my sort of day-to-day life kind of thing as well. And I do put some fitness stuff out. At the moment, I'm doing a live stream every single day, and I had Mike here on it as well the other day, and we had a good chat. So that's similar to this sort of thing, just getting to know someone. And I do that every single day at the moment during quarantine period, because it's something for me to do, basically. And yeah, it's really fun to do. And I do live streams for fitness as well, an hour before that goes live. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment, and where you can find me, just Adapt to Perform everywhere. And then what the future holds to me, basically I want to keep growing it and see where I can take it. And my ideal situation is that I'd love to have a location here, either in the UK or somewhere in Europe, that people can come to if they've had a spinal cord injury post-hospital. And it's a gym where I help them become more independent, have an Airbnb attached to it, and I can help them cook, and I teach them all new skills that they will want to learn in their life, as well as a gym attached to it where we can do some personal training stuff and just help people through their journey in life post-hospital. That's like the long-term goal, and I have many goals in between that, and including some personal goals in terms of some crazy adventures that I want to do. Like, I haven't really properly announced it, but it is out there in the world. I just haven't announced it myself, but I'm going to be doing the world's first quadriplegic 10K swim, open water, in September, hopefully. So yeah, that's something that unfortunately training's on hold for that because I can't go swimming, but I'm doing what I can at home. And also I'd love to be able to compete in an Ironman one day, and yeah, just to be able to do it and say I've done it, and then I can call myself Ironman.
Oh mate, 10 kilometers of swimming is a huge amount of swimming. Like that's a long way. That's
it's probably going to take me about 5 hours.
I've got a question
here
from Yuri asking, would that be funded privately? I assume, Yuri, what you mean is, would your private post rehab facility be funded privately?
So I think it's something that I want to achieve as a business myself. It's something that I want to be able to run. But I want to make it also affordable for people as well. I know that rehab facilities and all that is super, super expensive. But yeah, I don't know where it will lead me. That's just something that I would love to be able to do. But like, I don't know where this journey is eventually actually going to take me. Like, it could take me in a completely different direction that I don't know. But I know that I'm going to try and follow the happiness side of it and see where that takes me. But that's something that at the moment that feels like somewhere I'm trying to get to a point. But yeah, I'd love to have it. So it's very cheap, very affordable, and it's very beneficial to a lot of people out there.
Absolutely awesome. I think it's a fantastic goal. And Ben, I thank you for sharing your insights. And the key takeaway for me is to follow the happiness journey, follow the happiness path. I love it. I've been writing down a few of your tips and tricks. And what I'll do is I will upload this to our website and link to Ben's sites, so you can follow along and keep this conversation going and learn some more from Ben. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we get to meet in person one day, either this side of the world or if I'm in your side of the world.
There we go.
And I wish you well for the rest of the lockdown, and all the very best.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for having me on, and thank you everybody that's been watching. It's been a pleasure. I actually do quite like talking about myself sometimes because I'm often talking to other people, so it's nice to be on the other end. So yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
It's been great, mate. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll do it again sometime soon.
Definitely. All right. Bye.
See ya.